at Curiosity, the Why Didn't You Test That podcast experiences an insight on the many sides of better software delivery.
Welcome back to another Why Didn't You Test That podcast. I'm Rich Jordan. Joining me today as co-host is James Walker. Say hello, James.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back, Rich.
Great to have
Not
you
that
back.
you have much choice.
I've tried to get Ben on, but you keep coming back. More than welcome. Joining us today, we've got a very special guest in Phil Royston. Do a bio about Phil before we bring him onto the stage. So Phil is a founder, CEO, software test consultant, conference speaker. After a bit of a journeyman IT career starting in the late 1980s, Phil practically fell into the software testing world in 2002 and hasn't looked back since, and is still in love with what he does. In 2013, he co-hosted Tesena, smart testing with a slightly ambitious but very serious intending goal of changing the software testing world. Tesena are a fast-growing software testing service and training provider based in Prague, Czech Republic. It's a great joy to work with clients to help them solve their testing and software challenges at individual teams, Phil says, at group and organizational level. Phil regularly tries to share what he's learned through speaking at conferences.
Okay.
If that was wrong, Phil, you can blame your LinkedIn profile. Welcome to the Why Didn't You Test That podcast.
Time for an update.
So, welcome, Phil. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into kind of a testing profession. You told us it goes well back, and then tell us a bit about Tesena, the software testing consultancy.
We have to do our first cultural check here because the British, basically, there's no pronunciation rules, and Irish, British and Irish. There's no pronunciation rules, yeah? So no foreigners can pronounce any English words properly. You just have to learn it by hearing it. But the Czechs pronounce things as they're written. So when we invented the word, and it's an invented word, Tesena is how it's pronounced, we never thought that we'd ever have a problem. And every time we work with, cooperate with any British-speaking, English-speaking, not British-speaking, I'm making lots of, I could cut the whole introduction out now because I've made so many political faux pas that,
I think I've only gone for 2 variations already, haven't I?
Yeah, we had about 3 there.
Yeah.
So it's Tesena, yeah. Which people used to ask us what it meant, and we said, we don't know. We took some words, and I asked my youngest son to try and make a word out of it, and then we looked for a .com domain that was free or for sale.
Right.
So we found Tesena.com for sale for about $180. So that's what the company was called. So that's the history of the company in a nutshell. And so going back to your question, I left school, left university, couldn't get a job. I said at that time, the last thing I'm going to do is IT, because I had to do IT subjects in university and I hated it. I was useless. Programming in Fortran 66 and learning about punch cards was, for me, the most awful thing I could ever have spent my time on. And I said, I'm never, ever going to go into IT. But I spent a little bit of time at home with my parents and realised that after leaving for university, going home again, it's like really hard. So I got myself a job in IT and started there. And I was, I guess, okay at it. This was back in the days of COBOL and mid-range and mainframe machines. And there was a very established career path, which I sometimes remember fondly and think it's actually missing. It may be one of the problems we have today, is the career path. It's different. Maybe we get to that later. I don't want to sidetrack too much. And I, at some point, met a Czech girl in a pub in Edinburgh. And at some point decided I should move to Prague. That was around 1993, officially. And here in the Czech Republic, I was like as an expatriate British speaker, you had an advantage back in those days. If anyone that spoke English was obviously an expert in something. And there were a lot of people here speaking English who were experts in nothing. I somehow managed to keep myself busy and was doing, I would say, supporting some banking software. Where there's a company based in London that was sold some banking software to quite a few banks here. And we were supporting that software. And one day I was on a project migrating from this banking software to a new banking software. And I was sort of like doing the migration bridge, the programming and everything. And everyone thought this thing was so amazing that I managed to do it. And I could work miracles. And they said, your next miracle is to lead the testing team. And I said, oh, nice. Yeah. And how long for? 6 months. And I was only interested in the contract, basically, and the money. I said, okay, testing, I can do that. What is it? And at that point, I realized that I spent maybe 20 years in IT and never ever met a software tester or ever done any, let's say, even known that software testing was even a thing. I would even go to that level of extreme generalization. And there I was now test manager leading this team of 30 software testers and trying to convince them to do things like write test cases and implement Mercury Quality Center in those days, which was a bit of a fight because they could see that I could track everything they did every day if they had such a tool, and they didn't like that idea. But eventually they were full support, and that's how I got into software testing. I really like the problem-solving aspect of software testing. Yeah, you always seem to be facing problems, something you need to improve. And I think the biggest difference was from when you're doing IT, where you spend a lot of time in front of a green screen or terminal of some sort, coding or testing your code. I understand I did a lot of testing because basically there was nothing between me and production. It was me. I was the guy that came in, the business told me what they wanted to change. Drew it on a piece of paper, we agreed it. I did a prototype. And this was not following any methodology, it just seemed like common sense. And then you code it and say, okay, so I'll put it live. And they said, can you put it live tomorrow? And say, okay. And you spent the rest of the day testing the hell out of it because you didn't want to be woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning when the batch running the bank failed. Yeah, so from going from that, where you spent a lot of time, maybe there were some interactions there, human interactions, where you went into software testing, and it seemed to me that it was all human interactions. So for me, that was the thing I really fell in love with. You were, in my case, I'm going to a lot of big, difficult projects, like really, really big, difficult projects, and you were there as the expert, and being a little bit egotistical as well. Maybe enjoyed the attention and the power, and was really able to make big projects which were in trouble for a long time. Eventually, to work through to some sort of success by sheer force of will, motivating people, solving problems around testing and so forth. So that was my career in testing up till about 2000, where we're now 2024. So 2013, I was kind of burnt out from all those big projects. And I said, okay, there must be a better way of doing software testing than going these projects. Yeah. And that's when I decided to try and do it as a business, software testing as a business. So that was when Tesena was formed. And that's now 11 years ago, and we're still here. And I guess we're doing okay.
Cool. So, I see we've had a conversation before this, and I guess a leading question in terms of, you've mentioned there that you fell into software testing. Obviously, you were doing a migration, I think, in financial services. That tends to be very, where it's a regulated thing, it tends to be very, very formula-based, lots of structure, very test-heavy phases going on, right? And you mentioned you created a consultancy, I'm sure doing very, very well. It's fair to say that your ethos, if you like, around testing and quality has changed over the time. Do you want to kind of just elaborate on that a little bit?
If I start ranting or it becomes a very long monologue, please start waving at me.
Have a rant. I want to hear this.
Okay, I have a tendency to monologue. So my apologies to all viewers that you'll only be hearing my voice for the next 1.5 hours. Okay. I think I mentioned a little bit there because I love being the center of attention as a test manager. Yeah, I joined projects at the moment they were, well, they said, according to their project plan, many times revised project plan, that they were about to start testing, and they said, maybe we should find a test manager now. This guy we have as a test manager clearly is no good. We can't trust him with this job. We need to find somebody who's really good. And I repeatedly joined these big projects in a similar sort of situation. And basically my job was to get it through to the end. And I loved the attention, I would say. Looking back, I maybe at the time didn't understand what was going on, but I loved the attention because I remember that I did one project in Bratislava in Slovakia, and I made 3 presentations every week, like big formal stand-up presentations. The cinema hall, as they called it, the biggest meeting room in the whole bank, was reserved for me for 1.5 hours. I stood on the stage. I had a long, nice slide deck full of beautiful slides and graphs, and everybody came to listen to what I had to say because I was the voice of the truth.
Sounds like your Las Vegas residency going on there.
And maybe I just didn't have maybe I was thinking about this YouTube concerts now. I've seen them on YouTube with this, is it the dome or the cube or something? And they have all this super effects going on. I had a few ugly slides with a few ugly graphs, which basically said things were going down, guys. Yeah, so not quite excited. Yeah, and I realized looking back that I probably subconsciously did a few things that made testing even more important than it needed to be. There were better ways of approaching the whole problem than testing the quality in, which is basically what we ended up doing. But like in some cases, okay, the project's been running 5-6 years. They spent a lot of time, a lot of money, burnt through several consultancy companies, changed the name of the project 5 times, in the hope that it might get better. And you come in and it's like last moment, last gasp, let's get this thing working. So they say, okay, let's just test. Let's start testing. And I really pushed, let's get a testing environment, let's get something deployed and let's start testing. And then we'll have some feedback about where we are. But like looking back, I could see like maybe that wasn't the most effective. I also have a problem with effective approach. Yeah, but it worked. Yeah, but it was a long, hard battle. It was another 1.5 years of really hard work until you got to the end, or to the point where business said, "Hey, this really looks like it works. We never believed it would." Yeah, and then they started taking over, and my job is over. And looking back, I was thinking, yeah, I could have done this differently. And a few years ago, let's say 10 years ago, I started hearing about this agile thing. And I'm a serious waterfall history guy. You can understand, as you said, financial services, waterfall projects, big waterfall projects. And I was going, that's never going to work. Yeah. I read the Agile Manifesto. I said, what? What are you talking about? Yeah. But over the last 10 years, I've really started to see, and in a more accelerated way, in the last 2 years, I would say, in a more accelerated way, I've really started seeing that this, I don't know I don't know how many guys went to the mountain, 12 or 10, I don't know. Yeah. But really, they studied a lot of psychology. Those guys understood how humans work well together and how they behave well together and how they can achieve a lot together. And I've seen that with my own eyes now as our company transformed from a hierarchical company to a self-organized company, and you can see the power of teams. And the whole agile thing is people interactions over processes and tools, I think is the first value, which everybody skips over, because I like the one about documentation, obviously, because I don't like writing it. But the first one is the most important. It's basically a team of people working together to try and achieve a result. And they've got the same goal or similar goals, and they want to achieve it. And you can see that the power of a team really working. And in today's world where we're not solving just complex problems, we're not solving complicated problems, we're solving complex problems. And the definition, there's a Sinefin network which says that a complicated problem can be solved by an expert. And if you want to build a house, you hire an architect. You can solve the problem. But with complex things, one person isn't enough, and you need more people. And you know those different points of view and all those different skill sets. And together, those people, if you create this right environment, this psychological safety, which is so important, that those teams can talk to each other, can give each other feedback, can share ideas without any fear, you can really see that really starts to work. And in my latest, let's say, love is quality engineering, which is, and it's nothing new, absolutely nothing new. It's just that somebody cleverly took a new phrase, and when you call something by a different name, in my experience, people start to pay attention. If you were starting to say software testing, but we should do shift left and we should do improving the process, I would say, I know what all that means. But then if you say quality engineer, and they go, oh, what's that mean? And then you say, it means shift left, improving the process, early and continuous feedback and all those good things, which is stuff the Japanese invented after the Second World War. Toyota and Honda, I've heard recently that Honda were also very much into continuous improvement things, which is why if you buy an old Honda motorbike, it will never break, it will be reliable forever. That this mindset is now coming now. In the last few years, you hear it more and more. This mindset is coming back into software testing. And it's nothing new. It's just you find teams which are really doing this stuff now. Yeah. All these ideas are years and years old. We've been talking about shift left almost forever. And we should review the requirements before we start. This was even in waterfall, so we should do requirement reviews. We should do specification reviews. It's all in waterfall. We never did it. We pretended we did it, but we never did it. We never did it, or we pretended we did it, we never did it. But there's teams out there that realize that if at the end of a 2-week sprint, they want to put something meaningful and valuable into production, they have to work in that way. And when you switch into the DevOps environment, which is absolutely incredible, like when I first heard a few years ago, these teams putting changes into production every few seconds, you're going, no, it's not possible. But it's true.
It can always work.
Yeah. But the key thing there is...
You won't go there.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't work. But that's the point. They know it might not work. But the thing is, the magic is they put another fix live in 2 minutes to fix it. Yeah, so this testing in production, which I literally had a heart attack about when I first heard it in a conference, some guy was saying, you should test in production. I was going, no, I'm a test manager. We need to do more testing before production, never testing production. Yeah, that makes it possible. So that's, for me, the change in approach. And when I think about when I was a software developer, as I already mentioned, like old guy talking about how it was absolutely perfect in the past and how you young people don't know how to do anything, typical situation. I did DevOps for years, and it just seemed a very natural way. It wasn't called DevOps. We had no methodology, but it was just common sense that I, as a developer, I would write the code, but in order to write the right code, I need to talk directly to the business person and understand really what they want. And go back to them several times to get feedback from them, early continuous feedback, do a prototype, draw it down on a piece of paper, get feedback, and then myself take responsibility for the quality. And I put it live, and I supported it when it was in production. Because I was one guy, 2 guys working alone on small projects. It was just a very natural way to work. And I don't see any reason why we can't work that way again. And the waterfall system created these huge silos where you had analysts teams and development teams and testing teams, and they never talked to each other. They just handed over artifacts. The analysts handed over some specifications and requirements. The developers handed over some code. And testers handed back defects, and that was basically how we work. So my hope is we return back to the future. Yeah,
I think that is the direction of travel, though. If I look at what's happened, so many organizations have been obsessed with developer productivity, and I think that that's kind of part of the reason, or the root cause as to why we've ended up in this weird area where testing has kind of been seen as this second-class discipline. I guess, and you're right, there has been a rebranding. Quality engineering it's not a new concept, it's just rebranded to make testing sound good again. And it has worked. Even myself, I get excited when I see someone with the title quality engineering. It does excite me. But when not in that way, Phil, but it does get
I'll
me.
change my title.
But, if you think about it, if an organization's obsessed with developer productivity, all the energy goes into how can we build stuff faster. It doesn't go into how can we make things better, how can we improve the process. And I think what's changed now is almost developers have got almost as productive of that as they're ever going to get. And organizations care a lot more about churn. What is the reason someone churns? They have a bad user experience. What's a bad user experience? They've had bad quality with a product, right? So I think quality is becoming an initiative that I'm hearing a lot more from industry leaders on. Whereas if I go back 2 or 3 years, it was always how can we build more faster? How can we ship more often? How can we keep the quality up, right? So I think there has been a shift. I'm seeing it too, definitely.
And sorry.
So there's a danger, though, that in the same way that you're almost there's a danger that people take quality engineering as a badge and just do the same thing. And, ultimately, what you see some organizations who are kind of, people who do agile but don't really do agile, people who do quality engineering but don't really do quality engineering are still doing the same things that a tester used to do, but just special as a quality engineer. Where actually quality engineers just do automation now, and therefore we've lost a lot of the analysis stuff that a tester should do. There's a danger that some organizations still operate, or I'll use Phil's analogy, the waterfall way. And so in some organizations where you've got that increased developer productivity, you've still got that quality engineer tester mythical man month or mythical mandate kind of mentality by which we still need to rattle through this very late feedback loop by chucking lots of people at it. And so they've not really learnt their lessons. I'm interested in terms of you engage lots of organizations around quality engineering and what quality engineering is. You go into a lot of organizations where it kind of feels like a rebadging of what they always used to do.
Okay, we have to talk about geography for a second. in the Czech Republic and Slovakia, where I'm most active, we're a few years behind, let's say. Yeah. And I met with sort of people when talking about quality engineering. I was basically doing networking on conferences because I like talking to people. You generally get the most, I'd say, exciting ideas just talking to random people over the coffee. That people started telling me that they were working in organizations that didn't have testers. And this was maybe 3 years ago. And for me, this was, again, a heart attack moment. I was thinking, that's my job. It's gone. No, it's not just my job. It's my company. No, it's not just my company. It's my mortgage. I won't be able to pay it. And really, this thought process went. And then thinking it through and talking to more people. And okay, it comes up more and more in conference presentations. People talk about quality coaches, quality agents, quality assistants. But this idea is relatively new here still. There are actually companies, some of these unicorn startups, which are actually very much quality engineered. We've got one online grocery retailer, and the head of testing there basically said, we've got to the stage now where I don't have a testing team because you adopted these quality engineering practices. But generally, it's quite new. So I don't see much of this quality engineer as a rebranded tester. I think there's a very, very definite risk that could happen. Because for me, the difference between quality engineering and software testing is a mindset change. And that's the difference between agile and waterfall. It's a mindset change. I still got a lot of organizations doing some sort of test process screening or some sort of review of something. And I'd sit with test managers or test leads, project managers, and they tell me about their agile sprint and how it goes. And at the end of 20 minutes of them explaining me what they do, I said, but that's waterfall, no? And they said, yes. And they're happy with it. Yeah, they're quite happy that it's still waterfall because that's what they're used to and that's what maybe they feel safe in. I'm not a psychologist, but generally it's better the devil you know the expression. So I think there's a risk. I think that if we don't change the mindset, and for me, the dangerous mindset of the software tester, as I said, for me, it was great to be center of attention. And I believe that could be true, I'm saying this very carefully, for many software testers, whatever the position they're in, that you're at the end of the sprint, suddenly at the end of the sprint, the last 2 days sprint, all the focus switches to you. And they say, Michael, tell us how it looks. Yeah, and you start testing and you write some defect reports and everybody's waiting for your defect reports, yeah, because they want to jump on them and start fixing them, yeah. And suddenly you're the most important guy or girl on the project for those 2 minutes. And in those waterfall days, and I think it may be still true in these agile waterfall, the agile fall or water scrums, whatever. Yeah, it's still true that a tester feels that they can prove their value by the number of test cases they have, the number of test cases they execute, how many failed test cases they have, because that shows how smart they are at finding bugs and how many defects they write.
It's your metrics, right?
I think for the quality engineer, your goal is to not write any test cases, not execute any test cases, and not write any defect reports, because that shows you've done the job well. If you take it as a person that's trying to give feedback to the team, not just about the quality of the product at each stage, trying to give feedback, but actually give feedback on the process, like, okay, something happened. Why did it happen? Can we do something differently so it wouldn't happen next time? And the team should sit down and say, yeah, okay, we understand, try and understand the problem, and find a solution. The team's perfectly capable of doing that. What I found in my experience, I do workshops with teams, and they understand the problems themselves. You don't have to tell them anything. And they can find solutions themselves.
I was going to ask that you might have kind of alluded to it there in terms of, the aim of the quality engineer, but, agile teams, multidisciplinary teams. Yeah. Do you find that actually everybody defaults to their discipline within that multidisciplinary team and therefore almost doing mini waterfalls? How do you break? It's totally a cultural thing, right?
I think it's the way we brought up. Again, not a psychologist or anything like that, but in my generation, you're a little bit younger than me, we were brought up to say, like, if you're an expert in something, that was the goal. You need to be an expert in something, because there will be the money, there will be the prestige. You're on Maslow's pyramid. You've got the money, you've got the prestige, you've got the status, and you get to the top level, which I can never remember what it means, but your fulfillment, be an expert. People are driven to deepen their expert, and cross-functional teams require T-shaped people. Yeah. And that means that you won't, and I think this is a fear aspect, I am not the only expert on the team in this activity. Therefore, I'm losing my power, my status, and my prestige, and my ability to ask for more money.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the fear comes. And that's the thing. It's a mindset change that says, okay, I'm comfortable with being on my vertical. I know a lot about testing. I've got a good quality mindset. I'm got great soft skills. I think it's really a software tester should have great soft skills. Quality engineer also should have good soft skills. I'm able to motivate people. I'm able to sit with people. I'm able to bear in with people. And on the other hand, I'm not scared of jumping in and writing some requirements, user stories. I'm comfortable with maybe doing pair programming. I'm comfortable with helping developers develop unit tests. I'm comfortable with all those things. So that's what's required. And that loss of I'm the expert, I have the monopoly on that activity is where the problem is for agile and
How do you go about breaking down that silo, if I call it a silo? Is it a case of visualizing the activities and kind of almost tackling the flow or lack of? How do you get people to recognize those things?
That's a tricky one. And I don't have the answer. No, our company a year ago decided that we would change focus from software testing, because we did only software testing, and now we switch focus to quality engineering. And then started the questions. What is it?
Yeah.
What does it mean? And we're still in this very quite deep discussion internally. How do you become a quality engineer, whatever that is? And actually, it's starting to look like there's no such thing as a quality engineer. It's a cross-functional person with the skill set that matches that team's requirement at that moment, yeah? So, okay, from our point of view, it's probably somebody with a good testing background, solid testing skills, but has something else the team actually needs to fit into that cross-functional thing. So I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's something that people have to try, find out it's not so scary as they may think it is. And some people have no problem with it at all. They're okay, I'd love to start developing. And I'm doing automation, it's going to be boring. I'd like to start developing. So you get some people who support their career path because they want to get on the tee, let's say, on the top. And some people saying, yeah, I only know testing. I don't feel I would be good at doing anything else. And unfortunately, I think the way I see it going, and I hope it goes that direction to some extent, that the teams will have no longer any need for experts. In fact, in DevOps, an expert is the last thing. It's an anti-pattern. Yeah. If you have the one guy and the only one guy that knows how to do the one thing, but there it's an anti-pattern, because that is how do you say it? I can't remember the English word.
It's hero culture, isn't it?
Yeah, but it blocks the flow. Yeah, if you've got work going along the line and you're waiting for somebody, it blocks the flow. And if you've got a goal to go live in 20 seconds, but you have to wait for one guy to do one thing, and he's on holiday or busy or doing something, then it blocks your flow. So they try and avoid that pattern. And I think in the long term, I would hope that we're all teams are non-reliant on experts. Because
it's interesting, Phil, because listening to you there, a lot of what you're talking about is not hard skills. It's more soft skills, right? You're talking about mentorship. You're talking about, cross-functional collaboration. And we were chatting with Daniel Nilsson yesterday, right? He was on the podcast, and his whole thing was, you go to any conference in testing in particular, and it's all about tooling. It's all about technology. People love talking about, how do I automate this web browser? How do I do API testing? How do I do mobile testing? And actually, his whole point was there needs to be more education. There needs to be more content to focus on the soft skills, because that's actually where the most power comes, right? You're breaking down silos. You're coming into projects. You're communicating. You're getting everyone on the same page. That's so empowering, right? But it just doesn't happen. Like, to me, education is the biggest thing fundamentally. Yeah. And I just don't feel like we have enough of it to a certain extent, or at least education on the right things, I suppose.
I would call Daniel a friend, so I don't want to say I don't agree with him, but I don't totally agree with him. It depends which conference you go to. If you go to Eurostar, you get a lot of soft stuff, and it's quite good. I think if you go to Agile Testing Days, you'll get a lot of the soft skills stuff. I haven't been. There's maybe one conference I'll try and go to this year. And then if you go to other conferences, then people are starting to show you code snippets, yeah, and I'm going out the door at the back. I don't know what this is about. I'm leaving. I'll go and find some coffee. Yeah. But to answer the question, I think you need both. because you can't be scared or ignorant of code. You're doing software development. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
I agree.
testing for a long time, we were saying, oh, yeah, we test black box. We test black box. We don't want to test white box or grey box. Black box, because we want to see how it behaves. We shouldn't know how it's built. And they used to say the same for a long time, yeah? Because I had a lot of testers who were not technically competent at all. I was happy I had a software testing team occasionally, because basically nobody wanted to pay for any software testers. So you got people who were willing to try it and had no previous experience. And I think these days, if you want to be I don't want to use the word full stack, but something like full stack software tester, then you need both the soft and the hard skills. Yeah, there's either to one degree more and the other degree less, either way. But you need to be able to read code, I would say, which is something I would have said 3 years ago.
Interesting.
So I guess, obviously you run workshops, right, that look at kind of quality engineering more so than testing. I guess I'm interested in terms of kind of the leaders, the managers, whatever, that kind of engage you. What's the problem statement they come to you with? Is it a quality thing? Is it a speed thing? Is it a cost thing?
Both, all three, generally. They have a team they feel is not performing, that they're not able to, for example, the team provides estimates before they start and they never come anywhere close to the estimates. They're slow, and there's quality issues. So that's the place they start, and they ask us for help. And again, it usually starts with ask for help with software testing. And this seems to be the default approach, where we have a problem with quality, so we need to test better, faster, smarter. And we used to do these test process screenings where we would go along and we talk to a lot of people in various different roles throughout the organization. And over a period of time, we started to realize that when we gave the report at the end, we were talking very little about software testing. We were talking about all sorts of different problems that they were having, which was, I used to say, testing, actually it's okay. A lot of organizations do it much worse than you do. And it was kind of a mixed message for the stakeholders, because they expect me to say, testers are useless or whatever. I don't know what they're expecting me to say. But you've got a problem over there. You've got a problem with change management. You've got a problem with project management. You've got a problem with whatever, yeah? And they didn't like me saying that, because they had this nice little small problem, which was called software testing. And I came back and blew it up into a huge problem. So now we say, okay, let's just do this workshop with your team. And let's sit with the team, and we'll work with the team, and we can see if we get the team. As I said, and it works. I just facilitate. We create a scenario. We have a plan for the day, and I give them a little bit. I show them a car factory, the Trabant factory. If you know what a Trabant is, it's the East German car. So there's a video of a guy at the end of the production line in a Trabant factory, and basically he's got a big hammer. He's got the car, and he's trying to get the door to close, and he's trying to get his bonnet to close. And I said, this is how we do software testing now. And then I show him a Toyota factory, where basically somebody's just going like this on the paintwork saying, did we scratch it? Yeah, because the car is continuously checked throughout the process. And I asked them what the difference is. They get the idea, and then I said, okay, let's draw on this whiteboard your production line. Where'd you start and where'd you finish? And we draw it up there, and I start to say, okay, where does it work? Where does it not work? And they said, well, we have a problem here. This is problem. We don't understand, and whatever. And they bring the ideas themselves, and then I just start asking some 5 why type questions. Why, and they generally dig down themselves to understand the problem. And then I said, okay, so what would you like? We do this sort of like a coaching exercise. It's a grow, it's goals, reality, objectives, and what will we do now? And they come out the workshop with a bunch of tasks, and they go out and start improving things immediately. And it's just like a huge retrospective. In fact, instead of us spending an hour every 2 weeks on a retrospective, just have to sit for a whole day doing sort of retrospective, and we go much, much deeper. And as I say, I facilitate. The team themselves understand the problem. They really do understand the problem. They're just not able to talk about it, or don't have the safe space to talk about it in, or the time to talk about it in. We create a safe space. We go through the process, and they find the solutions, and they are then motivated to implement their solutions. And that's a huge difference. And me coming along and saying, as a test consultant, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, do this, do that, do that. They leave the workshop saying, very nice, and that's it. But like if they come out those workshops with their own objectives on what they're actually going to start doing, then generally they start doing, and the feedback is that is a change immediately afterwards. So it's using, like, I would say, this agile value number one, people and processes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it really does work very nicely, and it's great fun. I really love doing it. So that's the cherry on the cake for me.
Yes, I think a lot of the time, it's great. It sounds great what you're doing, and a lot of the time, teams feel like they're stuck in a rut, right? A lot of the time, as you said, but you don't have to do a lot of work. They know all the problems a lot of the time, but they're stuck in a rut. They feel powerless to do something. Maybe read into how you kind of mentioned the engagement in the first place from the leader in terms of, I've got a testing problem, and very much managed from a top-down kind of instruction giver. Is there a kind of a shift in culture, let's say, like you mentioned psychological safety earlier, in terms of an education to which they need to become servant leaders to make these changes, to create that safe space?
Yeah, I think that was
probably
probably
harder to put in place, right?
Yeah, no, but that's probably. I would suggest
It'd be lovely to.
One of the reasons why Agile fails is because there's still managers trying to manage the team. As I say, based on my own experience, Tesena used to have managers and leadership, and now we don't. And it works 100 times better. Because everybody in the company, I'm quoting from maybe some book I haven't read now, okay? But if everybody in the company feels like a leader, or behaves like a leader, then you're going to achieve a lot more than a few people who are maybe not as smart as they look. In my case, definitely true. Being CEO, you have to make decisions you're totally unqualified to make. I don't know if this resonates with James or not. Yeah, and you had not enough information, and your job was to make decisions fast. They came to you with a problem and they expected to walk out the room with an answer, with a solution. And sorry, it didn't work very well, in my opinion. This is self-reflection, yeah. And if you now we spend more time discussing problems we solve problems in a team way. So there's a discussion, people come together, they discuss it, they all reflect, give their inputs, their points of view. Everybody understands the problem much better. They come up with a solution, and as I say, they go out the room and they implement the solution. In the hierarchical days, I would make a decision way up there at the top, communicate to my leadership team. They would then communicate to the next level, who would then communicate to the next level. And a month later, I'd be standing next to somebody in the coffee machine and say, "Hey, what do you think about this new thing we've decided to do?" And the person would say, "What new thing?" Because they never heard it. They didn't get through the chain of command. Or if it went through the chain of command, it came out sounding completely. Chinese Whispers is a game we played as kids. Yeah, it comes out sounding completely different at the end. So, and then I could make a decision very fast, but like to get that decision implemented could take you forever. And most of the time, not most of the time, often it would not ever get realized. And now CC works quite differently.
It's funny. It's funny. No, I was going to say it's funny though, Phil, because I remember being at CA Technologies previously, right, which is like a big enterprise. They got bought by Broadcom in the end, and one of the things they would always talk about was company culture. And for me, that was like maybe my third job I'd ever had in my career, and I just thought, what a load of rubbish! Like I don't know why I need to know about this. But now we're at Curiosity, and hearing what you're listening to there, Phil, that's a cultural thing. You've got to hire the right people to have people in that mindset where, they're willing to open up about the problems they have. They've got this kind of mindset of problem solving. So they're not just coming to you with problems, they're coming to you with solutions, or they're proposing to the team, these are the solutions, these are the options. And that does take a certain class of person, right? I don't believe that's just everything for everyone. No, I don't know if you agree with that. Like you have to be really careful who you bring in to the team, right? To Rich's point, to create that safe place where you can have that environment, I think.
Yeah, I think we also have the opt-out clause. If you don't care, don't want to get involved, it's no problem, no stress, don't worry about it. It's not you'll be camping against anything like that. So people who we have about nearly 100 people in the company, and I would say from that 30 are quite active in this whole sort of self-organized approach, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you talk to other self-organized companies, they go, "Wow, so many," because it tends to be like a core of people who are really loving this ability to actually influence things, change things, and make decisions. Yeah. Then there's sort of like people on the borders who are like going along with it, they're okay with it, they trust it. And then, of course, there's some people who are still out there, maybe complaining and moaning, but that's how people behave. Yeah. So you won't ever get 100% engagement. And you might, I've talked to smaller companies that went self-organized, and basically people who didn't like it left or were asked to leave, because you have to be able to either accept it or work with it or work in it. And if you can't, then you basically, the organization won't work in that situation.
So what was the spark then? As someone, and I quote, as someone with previous ego, then surely someone sitting at the top of the hierarchy exactly where you want to be.
I don't know.
What's the spark then?
Being CEO was never my dream. Even running a business was never my dream. It was just an idea I had.
Stand on a stage.
Yeah.
You just wanted to stand on a stage with a defect.
Yeah, and I found another guy who said, okay, yeah, I'd like to do some sort of testing business. Okay, let's do it together. And that was basically, that's kind of how it started. And it was never my dream to be a CEO. I liked, let's say, being the manager of a team or the leader of a team for some reason. But now I realize I much more enjoy being part of a team than leading a team, to make a contribution from a different point of view. So that's changed. From point of view of the organization, we built like 2 software testers founded the software testing business, and we knew nothing about building a business or running a company whatsoever. Yeah, so we learned a lot and made a lot of mistakes, and we built the hierarchy basically because that's what we thought we should do. Every company around us had a hierarchy, and of course we had consultants from time to time who came and told us how to make the hierarchy better and how to organize things better, but it never really worked. It just kept coming round and round again. Why is it not working? Why is it not working? Why can't it be better? You know, as software testers, you're quite demanding. You see something goes wrong and you feel like you need to have a look at it. By accident, we had a call with a company that develops software for printers, and some smart software for printers, and it was actually totally unrelated call, but they told us how they set up their product team in a self-organized way, got rid of all the managers, and this magic happened. And I left this call thinking, but we basically a consultancy company, it's like, we call it body shopping. Basically, a client needs a tester or test manager, we provide the test manager. And it can't work, that's product development. But then, somebody said, let's try it, and I'm kind of like almost addicted to challenges and new ideas. I've got this low attention span. New thing. I think it's called a novelty device. Oh, a new thing. I'll go and try that. And we went into it, and I have to say, knowing nothing at all about it, but we thought we'd give it a go and see what happens.
It's quite a nice fit, right, for a distributed software testing consultancy working in an agile format, right? Because you need your testers to provide feedback, right? And you're giving them that because you're giving them a safe place to do that. Yeah. It sounds like the way you got to this place was quite experimental, and therefore it's agile in itself. Right? You're not going to be given a lot of structure. You've got to find your way, and the distributed nature as well. You're encouraging people to give feedback in a safe way, and so you're going to get that distributed feedback as well. So it sounds like the ideal kind of culture to work within, right? Because I would imagine if you didn't have that, it's a very top-down, I don't want to say fear kind of organization, but you don't get that feedback, do you? And that's especially a problem when you've got isolated individuals. They will feel isolated.
Yeah. I think our culture was aligned or enabled that change. Okay, a lot of people were quite shocked when I cancelled the leadership team, saying, how can we possibly work without these supermen who know and understand everything? Then who's going to make decisions? And those decisions will be terrible when we make them, and so forth. But again, that's how we brought up how your parents bring you up. When you get a job, you have a manager, and you work for the manager, and you can blame the manager if everything goes wrong, so you have no responsibility whatsoever. I'm sorry, it's true, yeah?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. My boss told me to do that, and it's wrong. Okay, he told me to do that. I didn't. I said no, it's not a good idea. I just didn't say it out loud, maybe. And I think software testers, if you create a company out of software testers, then you're going to have a good culture, I think. Yeah, because wherever I worked, and you find 2 software testers, they immediately form like a little mini team. And they want to work together and want to collaborate, and they want to go to the pub together. So basically, you can't fail to have a good culture in a software testing company. So it's very, very formal, but informal, and very friendly. And as I say, some people are a little bit like maybe nervous or against us getting rid of this hierarchy. I'm sure some people still are. We have a hate session tomorrow to find out if there's any hate session.
My God.
And but basically you've got to again change mindset. Okay, nobody's going to tell you what to do. Now, on
Awesome.
the other side, you can decide what to do. Anyone can decide anything in Tesena. It sounds kind of really crazy. There are natural control mechanisms with us, because if you work in a culture, nobody's going to do something really stupid or really horrible or try and break the system. Nobody wants to upset everybody else, so everybody tries to make good decisions. So there's natural control mechanisms, and if you want to decide to give everybody 10% more salary, then okay. If you cross-checked it with the financial controller and maybe sounded the idea off me as the owner that I'm going to be okay with it, then go ahead. And that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Awesome. Time has flown by, and I'm conscious of time. Quick last questions then. So if you were to give two things, one way is just one thing, but two things. If you were to give people kind of struggling with where to start in terms of quality engineering, what advice would you give them? And also in terms of initial steps, if you want to go down a kind of a non-hierarchical team, what step would you take to get it done?
They're really horrible questions to finish on.
Sorry.
The journey into quality engineering is something we're working on. Yeah? And as I said, from my point of view, it's to switch potential, to do the self-reflection and understand whether you're being passive or proactive with a team. The biggest pain for me is a defect is taken as a quality issue with the software, not a quality issue with the process. So if you do find a problem, then the mindset is, why did this problem occur? Can't we just sit down and talk about this as a team to find out what to say? So that, for me, the switch to quality engineering is primarily about this change of mindset from this passive to proactivity, and then I think you've got to have the self-confidence and some soft skills to build that. So I would work on soft skills and try and work on, I saw a nice post on LinkedIn yesterday about, so you can talk to developers and get the respect. So you need to know a little bit about code. You need to know a little bit what they're doing. And it's not hard to understand, developers. The code is very hard to understand, and modern syntax is horrible. And then for the self-organization, I don't know. That's kind of like, maybe read a book. I would say read a book. And a nice book, the book that convinced me is, there's a guy called Ricardo Semler. And he inherited a company from his father. And he wanted to stay at home and be in the garden. So he tried to figure out how to change this company. And this was in Brazil. So you imagine like several waves of hyperinflation and economic doom and gloom, yeah? But basically, he built a very successful company and started to implement some self-organized principles there. And if you read one of those books, I think you get the idea and start understanding that it's actually could be quite good fun. And let's have a go.
Yeah. Awesome. Two hard questions, two brilliant answers. So thank you very much. Big thank you then to James for being co-host today. Even bigger thank you to Phil for some really great insights. Really appreciate it for that.
Okay.
That was all for this episode. Thanks again for listening, and hopefully see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
So. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Why Didn't You Test That podcast. To continue the conversation, head over to curiositysoftware.ie. Subscribe for more episodes.